So this is our session 4. I'm going to talk about the germination and early life of plants. I'm not going to go into adult life or diseases or anything else. It's exclusively germination and early life of the plant. But this is the most important thing because it's what we are going to do in February. First I wanted to talk about this because Marina, I think it was the one who asked me. You asked me many times how we can do to have a long harvest. Now, there are rules, we can say there are rules and laws that we can follow, but the thing is that it depends on so many factors. It depends on how shaded or sunny is your garden. It depends how you organize your garden, because imagine that you want to have a lettuce all year, and we will talk later about that. You need to leave gaps in your garden to continue putting plants down to be able to have always lettuce available. So you need to design your garden. You need to know what you want. You need to know how is the lifespan of that particular plant, and then you need to design your garden accordingly. So I have gave you one link, and I will give it to you again, where there are some tips, but it is you who has to sit down and think about how you want to organize your garden. Because for me, I will give you so many options that it is very difficult to see that in one class. So I will give you a link and then you need to sit down and organize it. Yeah, but it is possible. It is very possible. It just requires more coordination and organization. So this is the the life cycle of a basic plant. We have the seeds, you plant the seed, then you get the seedling, the mature plant, the flower, and the fruit. And then from the fruit you get the seed and you continue. So we are going to talk about these two phases. So as you can see, like this is a very small part of the life cycle of a plant. And if you don't get this right, of course you cannot have the mature plant or the flower of the fruit. But even if this first stage goes well, you can have so many failures after. So yeah, keep in mind that it's just a very small part of the life. We are going to have some new words. One of them is germination, sowing, planting. So I'm going to introduce them at the beginning, but yeah, these are 3 terms that we are going to be repeating a lot. So get used to them. First, germination. Germination is what you can see here when a seed transforms in a seedling. It is very important to know what a plant needs in the different stages of their life, because then you can troubleshoot problems. So for a seed to germinate, basically it needs water and warmth. A seed is a dormant stage of the plant, and it is very dry. So it needs to be soaked in water. It needs to soak the water and hydrate, and then it needs warmth, because think like of a seed that is outside waiting to spring to germinate. In a spring, normally you have more warmth and you have more water. So for a seed that we are cultivating is the same. So imagine that you are putting a seed somewhere and the ground or the paper, whatever, is very dry. That seed is not going to germinate. So by knowing these kind of things, this is how you can troubleshoot why something is failing. It's also a very delicate stage of the plant. As you can imagine, the tissues are very tender, so manipulating it, you need to manipulate with a lot of care because they are very delicate. And that question is important. How many seeds we plant? I'm going to talk later on about different plants, and some plants like germinate with a lot of success, like peas, beans. They are very successful germinating, but other plants like carrots, aubergine, they don't have such a high germination rate. So you need to take that into account when you plant. For instance, if you plant 2 seeds of carrot, thinking that you are going to have 2 carrots, maybe you don't have any one, because they are probably not going to germinate. So you need to know a bit the success rate and take that into account when you plant. For instance, me last year, I was very pessimistic and I thought that my tomato seeds wouldn't germinate because I saved them myself. And then all of them, I was very successful germinating them, and I had, I think, like 30 tomato plants. That is too much. So yeah, sometimes it's difficult to control. But yeah, it's something that we need to take into account. Now I'm going to talk about different techniques that you can have for germinating and for the early life of the plants. Each technique has different materials. Most of them are very easily, very accessible, very affordable. You don't need to buy anything extra. You can use like so many things that you have around your home. Others, they are a bit more advanced, but you don't need them. You will see. I'm going to talk about several. Yeah, don't stress. You don't need everything. It's just to inform you. This is a very, very simple technique. Wet paper in a warm place. So in this case, you will put the seeds in wet paper. Wet paper, not soaked, because you don't want to drown the seeds either. So soaked in water, and then I normally put it in a bag that is sealed or that I can fold. So there is a lot of humidity there. And then you can put this bag in a place that is warm, like on the top of a heater. Here in my house, we have what is the name? A boiler, like a little room with a boiler. So I normally put the seeds there, and they love it. They love it because it's very warm and very nice. And this method is very, very effective. As far as the method that I have tried, this is the most effective one because it's super quick. You need to be very careful because when they germinate, again, they are very, very delicate, and you need to pick that little germinated seed and put it in on ground. So you need to be very careful there. And one common problem is that it has mold. It can develop mold because thing is in a wet and in a warm environment. So sometimes if the seed has a long germination rate, normally you need to be changing the paper so you don't get mold or cleaning the bag. So yeah. But when you start to do it, you will see how it works. Very easy. Another technique is using individual cells. So normally you have a tray, and this tray can be made of plastic or can be made of like paper. You just put the plant there, and then you can do the same. Like you can put it in a warm place, like in the boiler or on top of a heater until the seed germinates. And then the nice thing of this is like you can germinate there, and then you can move it around. So you can move it to a windowsill that is more sunny. If you don't want to buy these things, you can use pots that you have at home, like yogurt pots, or there are so many options. So many options. But this is easy because they are all together. And then when you get them, it's also nice. You just push a bit and you get the whole thing with the plant, with the roots. So yeah, they are easy. And they are reusable. If you don't trash them around too much, you can reuse them year after year. So it's nice. Then you can have trays. Again, you can buy the tray or you can get other things at home. I use a lot when my housemates buy like vegetables and things in trays. I just keep them. I will start to keep them now to have them for the season, and I just use those ones or the mushrooms trays or things like this. You don't need to buy from a garden center. These ones you need to be a bit more careful because think that you are going to have several plants together, so maybe the roots interlace with each other depending on how close you plant them. So normally you take a pencil to lift them and you push a bit down and you pick the plant. But again, because you have several seedlings and the seedlings can be at different stages of growth, they are very delicate. So it can be more tricky to handle this than in a tray with cells, individual cells. And it's the same, it's reusable. You can use it year after year. Or you can collect trays again, it's fine. Then you can have biodegradable pots. And this is very useful for some plants that they don't like the roots to be disturbed, like the cucumbers and some others. So in this case, you will grow the little plant, and then imagine that you want to put it in the back of your garden. You can put the whole thing with the pot because the pot is going to biodegrade. So and the roots in many occasions they can go through. So it is very nice. So here we can see different types of pots. This one I believe is done with paper roll, so it's nice. These ones normally you can buy the discs and then you just put water and then they rehydrate and they grow, and then you can put the seed there. So it's very nice. They are not very cheap. Well, I don't know. One thing that I recommend especially with plants that then you put in ground, so that will be with plants that you are not growing in paper, is to soak them in water. Because again, think that this plant is in a dormant stage, it's totally dry. So if you put it in ground and for instance you have one day of sun, maybe the ground dries very quickly, and that seed is not going to receive all the moist that it needs to activate. So if you put it in water for at least 1 hour or a couple of hours, you can see, for instance, here you can see peas, how they grew because they hydrate. So I recommend doing this with some plants, like peas, beans, before you plant them. And in this case, if you hydrate them like this and you plant them in the ground directly, that seed will be better adapted to wherever it is going to be. So this is an advantage of direct sowing, that the seed is growing directly in the place where it is going to be the rest of its life. Yeah, this is what I was meaning, that you can have it, but it's not necessary at all. So if you have a heated bed, of course, it's like having a room with a boiler or putting the tray on top of a heater. You are just giving an extra warmth to the seats. So yeah, you can buy a fancy heated bed if you want. And then the solar lamps are also very interesting. So for instance, now in this country we don't have a lot of light. So for me, for instance, it's not worth to plant now, because I know that my plants are not going to receive enough light. So if you have a solar lamp, that lamp is going to give heat and light to the seedlings, so you can start earlier to plant your seeds. So is it worth it? It's not worth it. For me, it's not worth it because I have a small garden. I don't have space really to dedicate to this. So for me, it's not. I don't have it. So this is a personal decision. Maybe when you get very pro with your garden, you can have it as you feel to. Or if you want to have more of a continuous supply as well. I wanted to talk to you about the cotyledons. These are the first two leaves that come out of the seed. Here in the first picture, we can see a seed of courgette, I believe, or it can be some kind of pumpkin. And these two things are the cotyledons. Here, the plant has grown a bit more, and this is the first true leaf, and these are the cotyledons, so these ones. And this is, I believe, is a tomato plant. So this one will be the first true leaf, and this will be the cotyledons. So the cotyledons are the first two things that come out. They are not real leaves. So you will see that very relatively soon they are going to get dry and die. You don't need to be scared. This is why I wanted to tell you, because many people think, the first leaves are dying, my plant is dying. No, this is super normal because they have done their function, that is coming out the first ones to protect the little thing, and that's it, they are going to die. So don't get scared if these first two things die at the very beginning, because it's not that strange. The first true leaves are the ones that are important to check if they are growing well or not. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that because I have many people panicking. Now, we have germinated our seed, we have it in our pot or in our cell, it has grown, and then we want them to put them, for instance, outside in the garden, or yeah, it will be outside in the garden or in a planter outside or whatever. Like, we want to move them from the inside to the outside. This can be a shock for plants, because imagine they have been in a very controlled atmosphere here at your home with a very constant temperature, maybe not a strong sun, no wind at all, no predators, nothing, like very protected. And suddenly you are putting them in the outside world. That is a shock for them. So normally what you do is you harden them. It's called like this, hardening. So you will take your tray or your little plants, you will put them outside for some hours where the sun is not very intense, when the wind is not very intense either, and little by little they will get adapted to it. So what I normally do is I take them out in the morning, because of course if you take like a very little and tender plant and you put it in the sun at 2 p.m., no, probably it's going to burn and it's going to die. No matter how much water you put, it's going to die because it's too much. So I will start by putting them outside in the morning some hours, and putting them inside, then and the next day a little bit longer, like this. It can be, I don't know, like heavy for some people, but I think that they really benefit if you do this versus planting them directly and risking them to die directly. So it's up to you, but I think that this is a good thing to do. And it's quite fun. It's like having your pet. You put it in the sun, you put it inside, put it in the sun, put it inside. I don't know why this came here. Well, yeah. Now we are talking. We have passed through the germination period, and now we are moving to the early life of the plant. I think that this wouldn't be here. That's okay. So during the early life of the plant, they are less delicate than when they were starting to germinate. So they are easier to manage and move around. They like warmth and sun, but not very intense. So if you put them directly into the sun, it's the same. They are going to be to wilt and scald, and they are going to die. So it needs to be especially at the beginning, a bit moderate. Because they are growing the leaves. I don't know if you remember what we talked at the beginning, but they like more nitrogen in this stage to develop the leaves and the foliage. So they like a compost that is rich in nitrogen. Many times when you buy a bag of compost, not always, but many times when you turn it around on the back, you can see the richness of is normally nitrogen, potassium, and sodium, I think it is. They give you the balance. So try to pick a compost that is high in nitrogen. Because at this stage of the plant, it is better if you have if you put them in a very rich compost at the beginning than adding fertilizers. If you add fertilizers, you may burn the plant directly. But if you don't give them enough nutrients, you will realize that they stop growing directly. It's the same if you try to grow them in soil from your garden and the soil from your garden is not rich enough in nitrogen, you will see that they will get stuck and they will stop growing. So it is better to find a nice substrate rich in nitrogen when you have them in this stage. Yeah, rather than fertilizers, important. Now, what type of problems we can have during the early life of these plants? The first one is where you don't have enough sun. And this is what it happens. I'm sure that you have seen this with different plants. They just try to grow and reach for the light, and they develop a very long stem instead of developing leaves. So normally they bend and many times they die. This is why it is important, for instance, in my case, that I don't have any solar lamp, wait a bit until there is more sun, because if I start right now and there is not enough sun, this is going to happen to me. So this is why I wait. Yeah, and this is the other problem. Do you see that they are all in the same direction in the picture above? That happens when you put them in a window and you don't move them. They try to grow towards that window, to the light, and they keep growing. So they are going to grow like this, and in many cases they may die as well. The solution is very simple: just move the tray around. So maybe you have it in the same position for a couple of days, and then you turn around, so the plants grow in the same directions, in all directions at the same time. Otherwise, yeah, this can happen. So it's that simple. Every 2 days you rotate them. Especially, you will see, especially if you have a very nice sunny day, the plants grow so quickly inclined. They have such a affinity for the sun. So you really need to turn them. Yeah, and I have mentioned it several times now, and I wanted to clarify it here. Is it worth starting so early? There is many people that, and you will see it if you are, for instance, in Instagram following several growers that have started already, like with aubergines and with other type of plants. Is it worth? In many cases, these people have a solar lamp, but if you start to grow plants now and the plants don't receive enough light, they are going to grow leggy. So, is it worth planting a lot of seeds and losing half of them because they grow leggy? In my case, it's not. So I prefer waiting a bit till the middle of February and then starting. Then another thing is, I have done this as well. So I have started plants and seeds earlier, and I have realized that imagine if I start one plant now, and if I start one seed in 1 month where it is more sunny, they reach maturity at the same time. Because it is more sunny, there is more heat, and they grow much better than in the cold. So what I have gained I have been for 1 month taking care of one plant and losing time and all of this. for them to reach maturity at the same time. So in many cases, I think it's not worth starting so early. But again, it depends where you live, of your house, the heat, how is your garden. So you need to experiment in this case. You need to experiment and see. In my personal case, I don't think it's worth, but everyone is different. Okay, now we have germinated the plant has grown a bit, and now it has grown a bit too much for the pot, and we are thinking about repotting it, changing it to another pot, or planting directly in the definitive place. My advice for this is plant it deep. For instance, this is a cucumber, I believe. Do you see the cotyledons? These are the cotyledons that I said to you before. I wouldn't plant it and I will leave so much stem outside, because chances are that it's going to start to bend, that what is the name? A slug or something is going to attack this stem. Yeah, many things can happen. It may expose the roots, because imagine if you start to put water now, you are going to move a bit the soil around, so you may expose the roots, and that is not good for us. So normally what I will do is plant it until this line that I have done here to be safe. And I will create, I'm sure that there is a name in English for this, I will create a space for water around the stem as well. So I will put it deeper and I will create a space for water. So at least when you put water, it stays around the root area. So yeah, this is a thing that I will do when I repot or I plant in the definitive place. And then this is a soya plant, so it's like a type of a bean. And do you see that big root that is coming outside? This is called a taproot, and is the root that goes in search for water. Many plants has it. They say that when you grow plants in cells, you end up breaking that root. But look, I grew this plant in a cell, and I take it out very carefully, and this taproot was still there, so it is possible. And so what I do simply is when I'm going to plant the plant, it's like I try to do the hole a bit deeper, and I try to put that taproot inside, because the plant is really going to benefit for this. It's going to help her to attract water from deeper levels, for instance, if the surface is dry. So I think it's worth be careful when you are repotting and taking plants out of the cells to try to keep this taproot. One thing that I will advise is when we are directly sowing in the ground, or when we are planting, so taking a plant that we have had in a pot, for instance, inside, and we are putting it in the ground, they are quite delicate as well. And of course, there are predators. In my case, a lot of slugs. So one thing that I do, and the slugs and the predators, they love these little plants when they are small and tender, because yeah, they must be super tender. So it's very nice for them. So what I would recommend if you have this kind of problems is protecting them. So this is what I do. I cut bottles. I also use glass jars. This is nice because they let the light pass. Or you can do like in the picture of the right and create some kind of like little, what is the name? Polytunnel, like a little polytunnel, and protect them. So you help them a bit during these early stages. This is also useful if there is wind. If suddenly there is a lot of wind and you have just planted your little plants, you can protect them like this as well. Also, if there is a lot of water and you think that they are not ready to receive a lot of water, you can also do this. So you can start collecting now bottles and things for February and March. This is something that can happen in the hot days. You see that they start to wilt, especially when they are very small. Once they grow a bit more, they are good to handle a bit more extremes of temperature, water, and wind. But at the beginning, they can be quite delicate. So what I do myself, because I work mostly from home, is sometimes I shade them. So I have different types of cartons, boxes, I don't know, maybe from your Amazon deliveries or whatever, and I just shade them, especially if I see that they are in this condition. Because even if you put water like this, what is affecting them is the warmth and the sun. So it is better to put a shade. Yeah, so I'm just saying. So these are things that you can take into account for troubleshooting problems. Now, what we are not talking anymore is about the adulthood of the plant, the flowering or the fruiting. We can leave it for another session or whatever, but I'm just going to stop here. So this everything that I have talked about is about the early life of the plant. Now I want to go through some plants that you may be interested in and give you some clues or tips if you want to grow them. Don't get overwhelmed. Every plant is different, so I just want to give you a couple of details. You don't need to write down everything either because you may not want all of them, so you can just come back to them if you are going to plant them in the garden or not. So with the spinach and the leaf bit that is here that you can see on the right is very similar to spinach as well, and the switch are the same. So I'm grouping them together because they are very similar. Normally we will start them in a cell or in a pot. And because these are like spinach, you know very well, we want them for the leaf. You wouldn't expose them to very strong sun, only soft sun, because otherwise very quickly they are going to go to seed and they are not going to give you leaves. So this is a plant that you will put more in the shade, and you will be very careful when you are hardening it at the beginning to not put it to very strong sun. And this is one plant that you can start in February. I have put a star here in the right to let you know the ones that you can start in February next month, from mid-February next month. Then we have beans and peas. This is the picture that I have shown you before, where you soak the seeds in the water so they rehydrate. At least I recommend it to do it during 1 hour. And you can sow them directly on the ground, but maybe not in February, because this is another thing. In February the soil is going to be very cold. Yet they say that you can start to plant things directly in the soil when you can put the hand and you can leave the hand in the soil when it's not so cold that you feel uncomfortable and you want to remove it. And it can be difficult at this stage for the seeds to receive enough warmth to germinate. So at this point, if you want to plant beans, peas, and all of this by the middle of February, and spinach and all of this, everything is better if you plant it under cover, so at home. You can plant some things outside directly. I will let you know when we arrive there. Yeah, but this is under cover better for now. You can start with your brassicas, that is the broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, and all of this. You can start them in cells, in this tray with cells, or in a tray. I recommend the cells. They are very comfortable. You just remove the whole thing. These are especially, in this one is especially important to plant them deep. So if you see the picture at the right is the same. Do you see that there is a bit of a stem here? I would have put all of this inside. These plants grow a very long stem in many cases, and then they are very wobbly with the wind. So if you can start them by plant them a little bit deep, they will benefit from that. And it's the same from these plants. What we want actually is not the leaves. Well, in some cases it's the leaves, like in the cabbage, but what we want is the head, basically. So we want the plant to grow and then develop the head. So it's the same. We don't want them in the direct sun because we don't want them to fruit quickly. So they also like soft sun and all of this. And you will also protect them. There are many nasty, no, not nasty, but slugs and other animals that like these ones when they are very tender. So I definitely will recommend you protecting them. And the spinach as well, actually. Yeah, if you have this type of problems. Yeah, then lettuce. The same in a cell or in a tray. Also, I will recommend a tray. And the same, because you want them because of the leaves. It's better if you put them in soft sun. It is good if you protect them because they are, these leaves are very, especially when they are tender, are a very nice treat for other things. This is one of the crops that you can harvest for a very long time because you can just remove some leaves and the plant keeps growing. So yeah, this is a crop that you can have a very long harvesting period. Garlic is one of the things that you can plant directly in the soil in February. Actually, I just planted in this plant is amazing and they resist a lot. Like mine in the garden, they are doing so well right now. And is it as simple as this? You just take garlic cloves and you plant them like this. You cover them a bit, and that's all. You can buy seeds online if you are interested in trying new varieties of garlic, but you can simply go to a supermarket and try to get a fatty garlic, and that's it. You can plant them directly when they are like this, or if you want, you can put them in water, and you will see it's so quickly, in 1 2 days they develop some roots, and then you can plant them outside as you prefer. But yeah, garlic is one of the things that you can sow directly in the garden in February, or outside in your planter or whatever. I will say garlic, they they don't occupy a lot of space. They are quite small, so it's the perfect plant for interplanting. Instead of making like lots and lots of rows of garlic, it's very nice if you think a bit and you design and you put a row of garlics between, for instance, tomatoes and other kind of things. The garlic are going to protect the tomatoes, and then you are going to save space. So yeah, this crop is very, very good for interplanting. Onions, you can also start them in February. You have two options. You can grow the seeds in cells, as you can see in the left, and then you can move them to the ground. Or you can buy sets. That is what you can see in the right. You can buy like bags with these sets in garden centers or online, and you plant them, and that gives you like you are going to grow them quicker if you do this, if you plant the set. Me personally, I grow them from seeds because I think that they are going to get better adapted and all of this, but yeah, you can decide how you start them. February is a good month as well to start with parsley, coriander, and dill. In this case, you have two options. Well, no, you just have one option, I think. Well, you can plant buy the plant in the garden center, or you can plant them from seeds. That is what I do, and they grow very well. Yeah, I forget about the rest of the things. You can grow them in a pot or plant them directly. In February, it is better if you grow them in a pot and then you plant them outside when the plant is a bit bigger. And it's the same. The herbs are perfect for interplanting. So instead of planting like a whole lot of herbs all together, you can put some of them here and there. It is going to be better. So if they have a pest, the pest is going to have more difficulty to jump from one patch of herbs to another. They can help tomatoes and other plants if you interplant them. So yeah, I would recommend the same as with garlic. They are very good for interplanting. Carrots. Carrot plants, they are very, very tiny. And they are delicate. The seedlings of carrots are delicate, so I will recommend you plant them directly in the definitive place where they are going to be. Advice about the seeds: they don't like to be dry. Never. So there are several different techniques to do that. Some people put, like, if mind that you have them growing in a pot, they put like plastic around, as I have shown you, to germinate seeds, so they keep the humidity. Some people, when they put them in the garden, what they do is they put like a piece of wood on top, and they leave it there for very long until they germinate. And that piece of wood is going to keep the moisture underneath, and it's going to allow the little seeds to germinate as well. They have a long germination period, very, very long. So yeah, you just let them be. You don't get scared. It takes time. This is why it's very important to keep the dryness, because if they have a very long germination period, you need to be on top of it and make sure that they are always wet, that they don't get dry. Now, these are the seeds. In this picture, we can see the ideal carrots that we would all like to have, but I go back a moment. Because these seeds are very small, very, 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 very small. Normally, you put more than you need, because it's very difficult to control how many you put. And because the germination rate of these seeds are normally low. It can be low because they don't survive many years. The safe seed doesn't survive don't survive many years, and it's very difficult to know how many you put because they are very small. So normally you tend to put more than you need. Normally what you do is thinning them. That is, when they have sprouted like this, when they have germinated like this, you go and you pick the ones that look weaker for you, or the ones that are too close together. You decide to pick one. It's a sad process because you are killing them, but it's needed if you want to have like these nice carrots. It is important. Otherwise, they will grow too close together and they wouldn't have enough space to develop the root. You need soft compost. If you want to have that nice carrot that we saw there, you need to have a very good substrate and soft. Otherwise they get wonky like this. Imagine that you are a root growing and then suddenly you have a stone. Then you bifurcate, isn't it? You start to have roots going here and there to try to look for the substrate that is soft. So I would say that if you want to give it a try to the carrots, try to have a soft and nice compost, free of stones, if you want to grow them nicely. There are tricks in internet. If you see, you can grow them in pots that are long. Some people grow them in pieces of pieces of pipe, so they grow long. They only have one direction to grow, so you can see a different strategies. It's funny what people do. But yeah, my carrots normally are like this, wonky. Regarding asparagus, that I don't know if it's something that interests you. It interests me. I have them out there. You can directly sow them directly, but because it's a perennial plant and it takes several years to grow, I would recommend sowing them in a small pot. They have a long germination as well, so it may take some time until they germinate, but that is fine. If you don't go to grow them by seed, you can get a crown. That is this picture that you see in the right. So you will put the crown underneath the ground, and the asparagus is going to come up. So you have these two options. It's very interesting. I would recommend you doing this. I think there is someone messaging in the chat. But I'll read it later. Aubergine. You can germinate them in several ways. I would recommend you wet paper. Wet paper works very well, and a very warm place. They like heat. The germination rate is very low, so with aubergine you definitely have to put more seeds than you think, definitely, because it is quite low. The early life can be in a small pot, as you can see here in the picture, and that's it. It's not a difficult plant to start with. You can start this one in February, as you can see in the start there, but they require extra warmth. Aubergine has a very long period, like very long adulthood until they flower and they give you fruit. So there is people that like to start it in February, but for instance, in my case, the same. There is not enough light. I don't think I can give enough sun and heat to this plant, so I won't start it. But if you want to give it a try, you're very free. And peppers and chilies the same. They like warmth, they like sun. So some people start them in February, but not me. You can start the seed in wet paper, and in this case, the germination rate is higher than in the aubergine. And then the early life in a small pot. I have chilies that I got from the supermarket, and they grow so well. They grew very well, and I keep having them because we like these chilies. So you can buy the seeds or get them from us, or just get them from the supermarket from a chili variety that you like. Yeah, they are relatively easy. Tomatoes, of course, the big favorite. Again, you can start the seed in wet paper, and that works very well for me. But the little seeds, when they germinate, they are very, very delicate. So if you don't want to be fiddling around, you can put them in a tray or in a small pot. And then they have the early life in a small pot, as you can see here in the right. For tomatoes, it's very, 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 very important that you harden them. Tomatoes are actually quite a sensitive plant. You will see yourself very well. So it's important that you harden them, and then you put them outside in a day that is not very like, I don't know, very windy or very sunny, so they could have 1 or 2 days to adapt before before maybe there is more sun or rain or a hard day for them. Many people, when they harden them, because they think that it's a plant that likes the warmth, they put it outside in a very sunny day and they kill them all. So yeah, be careful, because it's very sad. If the first day that they are outside you kill them all, it's very sad. Tomato plants, and if you grow them, you will see it in the stem. They can grow roots. So it is a very good idea that when you are planting your tomato in the definitive place, you try to put it a bit deep. So you can see here in the picture of the right that I have put the line up here. So I will put it inside of the ground until that level, because that part of the stem is going to develop root, and that is going to help the plant to get more established and better established in the ground. So I think I have been very successful doing this, and other people as well. So yeah, at least until the second leaves, I will do this. Chives, I totally recommend them. You can just put the seeds. They are very easy to grow. You just can put the seed directly in the ground, cover them up with a bit of ground, and they are going to grow. You can cut them to use it in your salads, in your soups, or whatever, and the plant will keep growing. So as long as you don't cut so much that they cannot keep thriving, you can cut and reuse, and the plant will continue growing. So it's very nice. It's better if you plant them in soft sun, because again, you want this plant because of the leaf, not because of the flower. So yeah, better if it's in soft sun. It's also a very good plant for interplanting, as we have said before. You don't need to put a big extension of this plant. You can put little bits here and there, and it's going to be enough. And it's going to benefit other plants because it's from the garlic family, so it's going to repel some pests. So yeah, it's the same, and in garlic. My mic has gone very okay. I haven't changed anything, I'm afraid. Don't know. I can try to get a bit closer. Cucumbers. Okay, and then I just keep going. Cucumbers. Cucumbers, they say that the root is very delicate, so it's better to grow them in a pot that is biodegradable, so you don't need to change from pot to pot as they grow. And then you can just put the pot directly into the ground, and the pot will decompose, and the seeds will go through, so you don't need to be fiddling with the roots. This is what they recommend. Now, one thing that I want to tell you, you can decide to do it or not. They say that the stems of the cucumber are quite delicate and they can get rotten easily. So when you are putting them water, and the water stays around the stem for a long time, the stem can get rot. So one thing that we have done in our garden, and it has been very successful, is at the moment that we are planting the cucumber in the definitive place in the garden, we put a bottle. And in the bottle previously we have done holes. So when the roots of the cucumber grows, they are going to be like around the bottle. And then when you need to put water in the cucumber, you put it directly in the water. So the water is going to come directly to the roots instead of staying around the stem. So this can be very useful. That can be very useful not in this country, but in very hot countries where you will lose a lot of water because of evaporation. So in this way, you are putting it directly into the roots. So this is a very good technique, and especially useful for the cucumber. You can use it for other things if you want, but in the cucumber, I think is a very nice thing to do. And this person has done it in tomatoes, in the picture of the right. Courgette. First, one thing about the courgette. For 3-4 people, 2 plants is enough. So please don't get overexcited with the courgettes, because they can give so many. It is an amazing plant. So for a family of 3 or 4 people, I will say that two courgettes is way more than enough. But I really recommend you this plant. I think it's my favorite of all of them. The seeding wet paper is it works very very well. In a wet paper in a warm place, or you can start it in a small pot like in the picture, and then the early life in a small pot, and then that's it. You just plant it in the definitive place, a bit deep. Do you see the cotyledons? Here you can see very well. These are the big cotyledons, and these are the first true leaves. Yeah, and that's it. Melon cantaloupe, you can see is very similar to the courgette as well. I really recommend this plant of all the melons. The melons are small, so yeah, so it's relatively easy to grow because it's a small thing. The seed is very similar to the courgette. It can be started in wet paper. Well, the seed is more similar to the cucumber actually, but yeah, it works in wet paper very well or in a small pot. The early life in a small pot, and then that's it. You change it to the definitive place or no. This plant grows up, so you need something where it can climb up. This is very nice. This plant. I have seeds, by the way. Okay, and that's it for today. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you a lot. So the homework will be for the people who hasn't done it. Keep design your garden and choose the seeds. Think that we are starting by the mid of February, so it's a good moment to start to really have everything planned, have your seeds ready, and having everything ready for the mid of February. Here I leave you the link of a sowing timeline for vegetables. It is very good. It tells you as well if it's a good month to plant them indoors or to plant them outdoors. So because here I have given more information specifically about February, but yeah, later on during the summer you can plant other things. So this sowing timeline is very good. So I recommend you going, having having the list of the plants that you are going to plant, and organize your work. It's like in February I'm going to plant this and this. In March this and this. In June this and this. And then you can think, if you want long harvesting or if you want a garden that is very productive, you can think, okay, but this by June, I don't know, my peas are going to be finished. I'm going to plant another thing. So by using this sowing timeline and knowing what you are going to plant, then you can organize your garden for having a long harvest, a long producing season. So this is something that you can do before starting to put the things in the garden. This is a screenshot. I just wanted to give you a screenshot of this link. You can see February best start date is after Valentine's Day. Yeah, so mid-February. You can sew undercover this. You can sew outside this. So yeah, this is the type of information that you get in the link. It's very very useful, very very useful. And then because Martin was asking me about lettuce, so you can see the common advice of sow every 2 weeks. So you can have this information as well. It is very good, really. If you're interested in planning your garden and having a long season, check this and organize everything before starting to germinate and plant. Yeah, I just wanted to put you the vertical garden of Mary. She just sent to us. So Mary is going to have an indoor garden, and they came up with this idea, putting this in the window so they can have more space to grow things. So you don't need to have a super garden outside or a lot of space to do things at home. This is perfect for herbs, for chives, and for so many other things. So you can use your imagination. Session 5. So this has been session 4, and my idea is doing 4 or 5 sessions or so. We can continue this beautiful relationship if you want. But I need to know, I would like to know. Some of you I have created a form online for you to tell me how you will prefer, if you would prefer just finish it here, or if you prefer some other sessions, maybe smaller sessions about other things. Maybe we can continue with a Facebook group and the Facebook group is very nice to share pictures and other thoughts. Maybe people don't have Facebook, so they prefer doing these online sessions. We can do like online meetings every 2 weeks, talking about things. I have had problems with slugs, what I can do. I'm growing this thing and it's not growing, what I can do. And we can discuss about problems and these kind of things. So that can be very nice. But please, I would like you to answer the form so I can see what most people want. And then we can decide. Then I can send an email and say, we're going to do this, waiting for this, waiting for that. And we create Facebook group or not, and we decide what to do. So for session 5, some people have voted already, and it seems that fertilizers and vegetable troubles have won. So if you are happy with that, we can do session 5 in a couple of weeks, and we can talk about that. We can talk now when the presentation finished. And I was thinking that it can be half a class and half a chat with questions, because maybe after you have done all of this, after you see the videos again, watch the videos again, maybe you have a lot of questions. So yeah, I think that can be maybe more productive if half is like a bit of a workshop when we can discuss other things. So my suggestion will be having the 5th session the 13th of February, thinking that the 14th we start to germinate. But I think that you should have all the information available that you need to do to plan your garden and design it, and to start with the seeds. So yeah, as you prefer, or we can do it the 6th if you would like to have 1 week more extra. We can talk about this now.